and all. Trust all of you are safe at home and you are using this lockdown period constructively. BS Business Standard has been organizing a lot of webinars with the students across the country and across the institutes to help students to get that extra edge during this lockdown period and use their time constructively. Today, in association with Business Standard, we are having a special seminar with Mr. Gopal Iyer on freelancing, the new normal. It will be a very interesting session for you all, and we look forward to you to focus and gain from it. Today in the panel, we have Rita Rangnicker, then we have Dr. Preeti Saxena, who is the director. I will take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Preeti Saxena, Director IBS. Dr. Saxena is dual postgraduate holding master's degree in science from Gujarat University and marketing management from NMIMS. She has done her PhD in advertising and consumer behavior from SNDT University, Mumbai. She has over 16 years of work experience in FMCG industry. She is the recipient of prestigious Devang Mehta Award for Best Teacher in Marketing Management, Star News Award for Best Professor Teaching Advertising Management, and Best Faculty Award for the contribution to Institute Development at IBS Mumbai. I will ask Rita ma'am to introduce the speaker for the day, and after that we'll have Preeti Saxena ma'am giving the welcome address. So over to Rita Rangnicker.
Thank you, Agnello. Good morning to Dr. Preeti Saxena, Mr. Gopal Iyer, and all the participants present here today. My privilege to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Gopal Iyer, Associate Director, EY-GDS. Just a minute. Mr. Gopal Iyer is a seasoned talent leader with over 17 years of experience working with large multinational organizations across industries and geographies. Currently, with EY-GDS, he leads the Gig Now, a program that has a specific focus on attracting and engaging with people for gig assignments at EY. Gig Now is a talent marketplace that matches contract workers with gigs at iconic organizations around the world. They make it simple to find the projects you love. They give employees the flexibility and choice to control their careers. Mr. Gopal Iyer is a speaker in various HR forums and has spoken on numerous topics like the future of skills in the world of HR, future of work, the rise of the gig economy, relevance of current skills, and how the business and talent landscape would change by 2025. Mr. Gopal Iyer is a postgraduate from the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, in strategic management. He is a global human resource professional, in short, GPHR, it's a certification, a certified career transitions coach, certified executive coach, and ABNLP certified NLP partner. So we have for you here today, Mr. Gopal Iyer, Associate Director, EY-GDS, Talent. May I now request Dr. Preeti Saxena, Director and Campus Head of IBS Mumbai, to start her welcome presidential address and set the context for the session, after which we will ask Mr. Gopal Iyer to take over the session. Ma'am, may we have your words of wisdom, please?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the support that we have got from Business Standard. We wanted to reach out to all our students who are currently interning from their homes spread over entire India. And we wanted, can we have a platform that more and more students could participate and they could listen to people from the industry. So we reached out to Business Standard, and with Business Standard, we have excellent relations. They have been giving us copies for the students at subsidized price. Our students participate in multiple competitions that are hosted and organized by Business Standard. And we look forward to a similar one, even if we go online for the copies for our students. Through Business Standard, we could almost reach out to about 500 students to participate in today's forum. And of course, thanks to Gopal to have accepted our invitation. We were looking forward to EY. EY has been a very, very aspirational organization for all IBS students. Mumbai has been trying to reach out to EY. Every visit to Delhi, we would reach out to an EY office in Delhi. And this time, finally, we succeeded getting EY on campus, and we have placed 9 students from IBS Mumbai with EY. Before we go to the topic, and in order to set the context, I want to share a little incident. IBS encourages international placements along with domestic placements. And for that, every year, set of placement heads travel internationally. 2 years back, not very far, just 2 years back, I traveled along with a colleague of mine, Professor J. Venkatraman from the Bangalore campus and Professor Durga Sinha from Kolkata. And we happened to meet the top 4 banks. Fortunately, we had an alumnus from IBS Bangalore, so he was pretty supportive. And he introduced us to this term gig. I'm talking about 2 years back, okay? Sounds, where was I all these days? How come gig not known? For me, gig was a freelancer. Gig was somebody who was a contract person. Gig was somebody who was, in the Hindi cliche terms, it would be somebody जो बेरोजगार है, जिसके पास कोई नौकरी चाकरी नहीं है, दुकानदारी करवा दी उससे, एक मशीन डलवा दी कुछ, and got them to earn and make a livelihood. So we went to this top bank in Melbourne, and this person, the alumnus, he wanted to help us. And he said that, ma'am, I'm ready to take as many from IBS, provided I get them as gigs to this thing. And I was like, I looked at my colleague, Professor J. Venkatraman, and I told him, I said, what is he talking? How are we going to go and talk to our students that you are going to be connected to somebody in Australia, somebody with whom you would be reporting at odd hours? You will be connected only through technology. And he said, look, we will pay them very well, but he should be available to me, and I could be asking him to work for 15 hours a week, or I could be asking him to work for 40 hours a week. It depends, but he should be open, and that's the future. And I was like, no, not in India. It can't be in India. In India, we still have, the human interaction, and people, it's a nation which says that sarkari naukri honi chahiye. There should be stability, the stability of a sarkari naukri and money of a private organization. Only then it is considered to be a career and an employment. And nobody, like a year back, we suffered when Amazon offered jobs and asked the students to work virtually, posted them in locations where students came back and said that we'll have a language problem. And I was wondering, what language problem will they have if they're posted in Coimbatore? They have to use English and they have to use technology. So what are they talking about language problem? They're not interacting with the customers. And how do we get the students' mindset to accept what is coming in? And I didn't know that this gig is not so far. It's just 2 years back that he mentioned that that's going to be the future. And he said that, look, ma'am, in Australia, we don't have the RM's profile for the banks. We don't have anything, there's no customer facing profiles, but there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data that we want our people to work on, and we need a lot of back office support. So can we have people for that? And for that, I'm ready to hire as many as you want from IBS, but it's going to be the gig profile. And I was wondering that, will it be so soon? And it's hardly a year and a half, and I see the new normal, as you have put it, today I don't even have to define new normal. Otherwise, yesterday I said new normal is like kitchen mein kaam karna, jhadu pocha karna, bartan karna, cleaning, swabbing, and men trimming their own hair, trying to be the, the salon kind of people. And for me, it was like, that's the new normal. But here, what we are talking is the augmented workforce, which is going to be technology enabled, and it's technology which is going to be giving them plethora of opportunities, which the students should be ready. Our students are pretty skilled. However, what we would like to hear from you, Mr. Gopal, is that your message to the students, how they should be preparing themselves. This is right in the door. So can we have our students getting ready for these opportunities, which are not so bad as people have understood? This can be something which can give them good money, good security. I'm sure the regulatory bodies will also get in, and some kind of support would be worked out in terms of the social securities, which could take care of the kind of taboos that are attached with this role. And if you could tell them that locations don't matter, distance don't matter, time doesn't matter, and can we be ready? So over to you, Mr. Gopal, and then I would come back towards the end of the program. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Preeti. Thank you so much, Business Standard, for this opportunity as well. Thank you so much, IBS School. I think is a privilege to be part of this conversation and interacting with students as well as a lot of others on the call. And I sincerely hope that all of you are, wherever you are, staying safe and staying at home and not venturing out and taking good care of yourselves. So I think, Dr. Preeti, you mentioned a few things which are really interesting, and I think I will try to address that in a bit in terms of what the new normal is, and did we see it coming? You're talking about 2 years ago, the conversation, but I think we've always been using gigs. It was just the way that we never associated the kind of services that we were using as gigs. So we'll talk about that through the examples that I will share. I would just be presenting my screen, my slides. Just give me a second. And if you can just give me a shout that you're able to see the screen now, that would really help.
Yeah, it's
Perfect, perfect. Great. So I don't think anyone, I would say, in the last 60 days would, or like if I would have had a conversation with any one of you, um, let's say on March 1st, if a possibility of having a conversation like this with the students, we would have ever thought that this was possible. I'm based out of Bangalore, and I have been working in Bangalore for the last 7 years. And if there was a possibility for me to have any kind of address of this to the students of this institute or even otherwise, I think that would have been possible only in person, and I would have had to travel to Mumbai to do this. But I think last 60 days, COVID has really taught us that we can do a lot more in terms of the ability to do business virtually, the ability to run classes virtually, the ability to um, contact, converse virtually. In my view, the biggest learning in the last 60 days, if I have had one, is I think we have been socially distant probably, but the world has moved much closer. And I think the digital orchestration of coming together as a group in a forum like this is a classic example as how easy is it to get access to such wonderful world-class learning opportunities in the world today than how it was 60 days ago. And we're just talking about 60 days. I mean, 60 days is nothing in normal course of times, but that's also a fact that 60 days is a lot in the current COVID world. So what's happening, I think, would be an interesting thing for all of us to look at. We'll just talk through a few areas of what's happening today, what the industrialization or industry 1.0 to 4.0 journey has been, and how has COVID-19 really had an impact on 4.0 journey. Uh, the modern workforce, which is people, all of you on the call today, and what are the newer opportunities on the new normal, and the realities would be, excuse me, what the collaborative economy or the gig economy as we know is all about, and how do you reimagine your careers and rethink elements of what do you need to be doing differently to adapt to the new realities and the new normals, and a bit about gig now, the program that you just heard. I'll talk a little bit more about what that program is and how some of you could really benefit out of being on that platform. Uh, so yes, so I think March 15th is when I was in Mumbai, and I was in Mumbai for a personal visit. I was walking through the airport on a Monday morning, I think, and I saw that the airport was deserted, and it was very unusual for Mumbai airport to be that way. And I clicked photos and shared it with my friends to say, you know what, this is, I think, the new normal, and I don't see anyone taking flights these days. Is it that people are getting scared or not want to travel or what? I mean, and I think a week later the Janta curfew was announced, and then the lockdown, and I think lockdown has completely transformed a lot of realities for us in terms of what we could do with what we had and what we couldn't do with what we had. And I think a biggest learning for all of this is, though we saw COVID coming. I mean, the earliest reports of COVID were in November, December. It was always thought to be as, oh, this is something that is only in China, right? Or, oh, this is something that's only in Italy, or, oh, this is something only in Spain. We will probably not get it. We in India have really high tolerance to and good immunity, or our demographic of 65% of work, I mean, people with the age of less than 35 means that we will be less, I mean, less exposed to this, and we'll come through it. All of that started getting challenged all of a sudden. And I think the numbers as of today, I think we have seen the numbers in India at least cross 81,000, and globally it's 45 lakhs, with close to about 300,000 people having dead as well. But the recovery has been one of the really good aspects of it, which means 16 lakhs people have recovered through this. In India, I think the recovery is much better. I think we are doing far better than a lot of others in the world. But this forced a lot of countries to go into a forced lockdown, a lockdown that they did not imagine was required. And I think if you would have asked any leader of the country of this in on January 1, 2020, they would have said, no, we will grow in this rate, and we will do this, we will do that, and all of that. But the lockdown meant that we had to take a hit on economy. We had to take a hit on the employment rates. The unemployment grew by 23.4%, and it will continue to rise globally in India as well. There was an estimate by ILO that there will be 25 million job losses, and there will be much more deaths across the world as well, and we'll probably, and recoveries as well. So we'll probably have to look at how do we balance out how long will we want to be in lockdown, and how do we get creative to still continue working, and find new ways of working to be I mean, in order to make ourselves sustainable to come out of this. So in summary, I think this is an economic and a health crisis all at once, something that we would never have even imagined on March 15th. And I would say, as much as it sounds that, oh, this is too big and how would we even come out of it, the crisis that we have gone through in the past, so be it the 2008 crisis, be it 2000 crisis, the Y2K crisis, or be it the 1975 emergency, or even I don't think anyone would have been alive during the 1918 crisis in this group, but whatever we have heard of people having gone through the 1918 crisis and how the world transformed later on, is the testimony that we human beings know how to deal with it. We human beings also know how to come out of it, and we also know how to come out stronger. So I think if there is one thing that I would want to infuse in each one of you listening to this today, is optimism, right? Absolutely be optimistic that things will improve, things will be much better. Uh, don't go with the hope that it will be as good as it was pre March 15th. Accept, adapt that the new normal will look very different. And the key here is, how do we adapt ourselves to be able to live in the new normal, right? So that's what I would say. A bit more about how the industry has shaped up in the last 60 days. Because of the lockdown, as well as due to COVID, a lot of industries have had to go through a lot of reimagination. Um, is air travel happening now? No. Are people traveling from one city to another and booking hotels? No. Are people traveling in trains? No. Is shipping happening? Yes, maybe, but not as much as it should have been. So global shipping is not happening. Is anyone buying anything other than essentials like milk or groceries and all of that? No. So pretty much, I think the world has come to stand still in terms of a lot of industries, and the focus suddenly has shifted from the wants to needs in many ways, right? So a lot of industries will go through a hit because of this, and I think we'll have to really think about how they can reimagine the world of delivery or delivering services or delivering products in the new normal. And I think it's going to be an interesting journey for a lot of us to see that, right? But suddenly the focus also will be on some of the things on the right that you see around construction, defense, equipment and transportation, rentals, packaging. Packaging is getting all the more important now because of the way that we don't know where the virus is going to be. We don't know. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry will go through a massive opportunity cycle where the focus will be on finding the right vaccine for the next few months to a couple of quarters to maybe even a year or 18 months. Real estate will go through a massive revamp. I think a lot of focus was always on the commercial side of the world. With the work from home becoming a new normal, we got to ask ourselves: do we have enough homes for people to be working from homes? So that will be reimagined in many ways. Food and retail, and food retail will go through a massive revamp as well. The focus will be on how do we get the right quality and the compliances in place to be able to deliver the right things. Telecoms will go through a massive push again because I think the focus is on being able to deliver services online versus offline, which means data and data services will be the focus for everybody. Waste management will go through a massive uptick. We, for various reasons in India, have not been doing the best in this space. I think this will suddenly become most important thing because I think it's extremely important now that we dispose the waste really well. There will be new business models coming out of this. There will be new areas to find more money, not in the immediate term, but more areas for innovation to happen in this space, and of course, business products that will come out of this space, which will make the new entrepreneurs of the world, right? And mind you, waste management has been one of the focus areas with climate change around, and you will see a lot of focus in this with COVID as well. Some of the areas on the left will go through a bit of rethinking, reimagination as well. Some of the areas like apparels, automotive supplies, and consumer durables will also go through enormous amount of pain because there will be not much as of demand for these for the next 6 to 18 months. So what is this um, uh, creating as an impact on employers, employees, and businesses. The impact on business is, and in the last 60 days we've seen this, a lot of business are, because they're cash stuck, closing. So if there are no flights flying, what's the point in having a store at the airport? I would rather close off and do something else. If I had a stall at the airport to serve food, I would rather serve food elsewhere than having a stall in the airport, or even a mall for that matter. If the cabs are not required now to ply passengers from one place to other, I would rather go home and be more closer to my family than being in a city. So a lot of Uber and Ola drivers have gone back to their hometowns. um, and loss of customers due to economic slowdown. Airlines doesn't have customers today. Railways doesn't have customers today. Um, a lot of apparel manufacturers don't have customers today, and will continue to be that way till we find a balance in terms of the demand and supply. So the demand has suddenly shifted to the essentials now. I'm rather going to focus only on the food that I need to eat. So, and the vegetables that I need to eat, and the meat and all of that I need to eat, versus am I getting my mobile screen guard? And that I may be able to live with a broken screen for a while, but I need my food. So um, it will suddenly create a situation, and it has in the last 60 days, where supplies have not been enough as much to meet the demands of people on the essentials. So a big basket that used to deliver food, when you order something today, or groceries, something today, next day, takes about a week to deliver stuff today, because they just don't have enough manpower to be able to support the delivery of goods. And likewise, in every other industry also, there will be a high demand in certain cases and a lack of supply situation. In certain other cases, there will be a lot of supply, and human resources being one of the classic examples, but you will not have as many demands. And how do we get to solve that problem? um, and not all organizations and companies are about remote operations. Like we at EY are 100% working from home. We could do that. Our jobs were predominantly laptop or computers driven, so made it possible for us to do it. But there are a lot of companies like automotive sector or defense sector, where you have to go to factories and work, and there will never be a 100% work from home option for them. And how do you kind of balance that out? So you will have challenges with them, and that kind of work as well. Consumption levels have fallen drastically. As I said, I don't remember shopping anything on Amazon other than essentials for the last 60 days. And it will continue to be like that for a while. If you don't consume, it will directly impact cash flows for everybody, because they will be suddenly sitting with a pile of supply inventory, but there will be not much money coming in because no one is buying anything. And a lot of businesses are today impacted because of that. And this is why the government is coming up with a 20 lakh crore stimulus to lift the economy. Because if you don't really create demand and infuse capital in people's hands, it will be a deadlock that will kind of create further distress in the economic system. Manufacturing will go through a massive meltdown for the next 6 to 12 months, because they will now want to see if there is a predictable element of me being able to see if the customers will buy this or not. And a lot of people will stop producing goods for a brief period, and then probably work on a reimagined model. All of this will increase debts across the board. Like people will take loans but not be able to repay, and that's happening right now even as we speak, and it will continue to push the needle even further as the months pass by. We don't know what the lockdown 4.0 is going to look like, so we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. And this will definitely have impact on employers and job seekers. So shifting in hiring practices have already begun. A lot of companies have not been able to hire people. One, because the demands fell. Two, because of the lockdown, It was absolutely impossible for me to go and onboard someone or interview someone because I had not imagined a world of virtual until March 15th. And I'll continue to evolve through that. So there has been a temporary hiring freeze across the board. Work from home has become a new norm across the organizations, especially in the ITES sector. And this will result in changing in existing policies, pay structures, benefits, labor laws, and all of that in the next 6 to 12 months, because there will be a focus on how to get people back to the workforce. There will be a focus on what is bare minimum that I need to do to be able to get that done, and that will warrant the governments to continue to look at ways to um, create an equilibrium. So there may be labor law changes that will happen as well. So what's next? Do we know if there is a vaccine yet? No, we don't have one. Do we know if there will be a vaccine tomorrow in the next 6 months? WHO has said we may have to live with COVID forever. Um, Now, does that mean that we should stop everything and be standstill and be under lockdown? No, we can't. And I think we will have to go back to work. Broader estimates across the world is that this current situation will get probably a little more worse before it picks up. Again, there could be a second wave in October, November. That will also further push the bar in many countries. Again, we'll have to wait and watch how things unfold. But I think this is the new normal, and I think anything that we discussed, decided around the relevance of the world pre 15th of March, it holds probably very little relevance in the post-COVID world, or even in the current COVID world. And that's because the supply is strained, the demand is erratic, and it has really forced all of us to rejig our people, product, and portfolios across the board. And I'm sure education industry is no different to it. I think a lot of students today are waiting to complete their exams for the longest period of time. We've always imagined exams to be in the classroom under supervision, and I think this will infuse a lot of digital ways of getting exams done, classrooms conducted, evaluations done, and everything, probably not everything probably, but a lot of work that we used to do in classrooms physically um, will be done in the interim period for the next 6 to 12 months to, or even 18 months, virtually or digitally. So there will be a lot of investments that would be made in the digital space as well. Right. So as the technology has continues to replace skilled labor, or has it defined or redefine it, right? So I take back this as a conversation that I had with my parents in 2000 and I think 2003 or 2005, sorry. And 20 years ago is when computers came into India in the organized sector, if I were to say so. And my dad was in an automotive organization, and my mom was in railways. And all of a sudden, they had to really embrace this new technology for using computers to do their work, which it was very difficult for them to adapt to. And 2005 was a conversation that I was having with my parents to say that, you know what, I want a computer at home because I think it's extremely important that I know how to type. So my dad's response to that was, go and learn typing. And if you want to know how to type, why do we need a computer? Why do we need to spend 30,000 rupees? So they almost, I think, never did see this coming this big, right? And their definition of skilled labor was an era of without computers. But today, if I were to talk about a world of work which doesn't require computer or computing through any of the digital, I think it's unimaginable. And I think that's the leap change that we've seen in the last 15, 20, 25 years. And I think people who adapted to it did really well for themselves, and I think did bigger roles and much better roles for themselves. People who didn't, I think, probably were not relevant because they didn't adapt to it. So there's always a fear that will it replace a skilled labor like us, or it does redefine us. I would say it has redefined everything that we have been doing. Same parents today are much more digital savvy even than us, because they know how to use WhatsApp, YouTube videos, or video calls and all of that. So it's really interesting to see how technology has really enabled people who never used computers to even start adapting to digital technologies. So where did this all start? I think it started in some form in 1784, where we started moving from mechanization, steam power, weaving loom, to 1870 to mass production, assembly line, electrical energy kind of change, where automotives came into picture, the way of mass productions came into picture. In 1969 is when computers came to the world, and we saw a lot of automation happening across, large scale automation. And we have today, I think in the last several years, I would say at least in the last 8 to 10 years, we've seen, with the rise of 3G and 4G connections across, we've seen the rise of Internet of Things, cyber physical systems. And as we were trying to adapt to it and go a slightly more faster into adoption of this, COVID happened. And I think COVID has just then further bolstered the opportunities that we had and the potential that we have around Internet of Things. And I'll talk about that a little bit in the next few slides as well. So 2012, I think, is an interesting year. Uh, we had smartphones that had just begun. I think we still had 2G in some form. 3G was just going to start, and we all had. I remember this, that we all ended up buying Blackberries, and we all had BlackBerry messengers of the world. But ever since 4G came, ever since Android market picked up, ever since iOS market picked up, things started becoming much more accelerated in terms of how many number of new models came in, newer phones came in, newer phone organizations, mobile technology organizations were formed, and all I'm trying to say is, in the last 8 years, with the onset of 3G and 4G, and now even talks about 5G, we're going to see a lot more adoption of internet and Internet of Things. And the reason why I bring 2012 is 2012 aroundish is when Uber was launched. And Uber was an mobile app based service. It was never something that was envisioned as a call center based service, right? While Ola started as a call center based service and eventually moved into an app based service as well. And just the onset of technology, digitization across all the industries and the form um, is phenomenal. And I think COVID will now push us further, a lot more harder, I would say, to reimagine the world of work in a digital age. Internet of Things will really grow faster, will almost push a lot of work into, as much as possible, touch less, because that's what is the need of the hour. And there will be a lot of innovation and creativity in this space that we will see. So as we go through a lot of digital, the question that is important for all of us to think through is, what will be more important in the future, the right skill set or the right mindset, right? And I think it's going to be a combination of both. The world of gig is all about skills, but the world of freelancing is also all about mindset. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the next few slides. This is all about you all. I think a lot of research has been done in this. And I think what it says is, the workforce of today wants a lot of flexibility, a lot of work remotely, flexible working hours as an option. They all want to grow faster, grow quicker, grow meaningfully. They all want a work environment which is adaptive. With culture is extremely important. The learning solutions has to be adaptive. It cannot be classroom based teaching always. It has to be on the mobile or on the app kind of learning. Um, they would prefer to look at diversity in a very different way. They would want to include everybody as much as possible to get more broader ideas. They prefer autonomy over anything. Um, Personal development has to be extremely positive, reinforced feedback, and recognition is top agenda in everybody's mind. I would say the employee experience, as better as it is or it could become, leads to a better customer experience. So if you have a problem of lack of engagement in an organization, and that has resulted into customers not being happy, you know where you need to go and solve the problem. So we have realized all of that, and I think a lot of organizations, including EY, has done a lot of work, not only in realizing all of these, but also trying to work towards making the world of work for people across all generations look different. There are stats which says that the current workforce today in any organization has 5 generations of workforce. Like you have people who are millennials, you have also people who are born in 60s. And when the two extremes sit together, the kind of ideas that come through are phenomenal. How do we ensure that the experience for both is same and consistent has been the focus for a lot of us, and we continue to look at that. So how have things changed and how did we reach here? I think I would say that technology was the first thing to have had an impact on us. Innovation continued to look at, I mean, innovation was the focus for a lot of organization and will continue to be looked at in the future as well. Accessibility was extremely important. With the digital focus, I think it's just made it possible, and it will continue to evolve even further. Wherein, how do I make it possible through digital orchestration, a delivery of food from an hotel A to someone's home? Um, uh, for in your context, how do I make virtual internships possible? How do I make people who were not really in the mainstream job workforce come and get access to a lot of work that they could do with us? So the world will continue to evolve through all of these. The workplace will look very different as well, because you will see a lot of flexibility around it. You will see a lot of collaboration with a lot of digital collaboration, and remote work will continue to be the new norm and become even bigger in terms of number. I mean, now is different. I think almost everyone is working from home, but even when the things become normal and people come back to work, they will start questioning, is this even relevant for me to have large workspace offices when I'm not going to have people working in office? Because it's extremely difficult for me to reimagine a workplace with seats next to each other to the distance that it is. I need to maintain a social distance norm as well. Like TCS announced a few days ago, they want to be 25 by 25, which means by 2025, they will have only 25% of workforce sitting in office and rest everyone will be working from home. A lot of organizations will do something similar for themselves as well. You will see a lot of automation in the workforce. You will see a lot of diversity in the workforce. You will see a lot more work-life balance being the area of focus in the workforce, and the change in demographics that will continue to evolve as well. So that's what is happening. How is this? I mean, how did this happen? Like, I think I remember my parents were, I think, somewhere here in the on-site, low flexibility, need-based role in 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and even 2000s, still when they worked. Um, but I think a lot of external factors started playing a huge role since 1991, when our economy was opened up for foreign investments to come in. And that led to people really getting impacted due to a lot of external factors, which meant people did get laid off at some point of time. There was VRS that was given. but people were still young and wanted to do a lot more. So they started freelancing. So people started freelancing. They were guest lecturers somewhere. They would photograph. They would be event managers somewhere. They would be accountant on a freelance model, and that gave rise to freelancing a lot more. I think 2000 and 2010 is when gigs started coming into picture, and the contracting started becoming a new norm. And the reason for that was, if I do not have visibility to things beyond 2 years, would it be possible, or would it be right for me to have an employment which is long term? So 2000 was when the Y2K happened, and I think Y2K, when the bubble bursted, led to a large scale layoff that sent jitters across industries, where they were really not sure if that's the right time for them to get people back on full-time roles. So they started offering probably contract jobs and gigs, and people embraced it because it was the right thing to do, because that's the new normal at that point of time that they all felt was important. And whoever did embrace it really well, I think, are really successful today with the kind of gigs and contracts that they've done. With the digital, I think 2012 onwards, we have just now seen a lot more of remote working and full-time gigs, and COVID in 2020 is just going to amplify the entire impact, and will push a lot more digital interface into the kind of work that we do, which will make it possible for a lot of people to get access to jobs, and they don't really need to come to a particular location to deliver the work. They could be wherever they are, and get the work done at the click of a button, as long as they have a good stable internet connection and a laptop. Everything else happens virtually, and that's what we have learned in the last 60 days. So I think you will just see that growing a lot more bigger. uh, so and I think I spoke about this in terms of what the millennials want today. But the key element here is 61%, and this number is far higher today as we also speak, is going to allow the staff to work from home, and they've already come up with new policies and legislations that allows people to work from home, the kind of setups that they need to make to work from home, the internet reimbursements, etc., to make it possible. And by 2020, I mean, I would say this number is almost 100% today, in increase in the workforce of working in remotely, is what's happening. So when we know that the gig economy or sharing economy is around, should you be beating it, or should you really join it? I gave you an example of 2000 when the Y2K happened. I think I'll give you an example again of 2012, when Uber and Ola came in. Um, a lot of people at that point of time who were driving autos and normal cabs said, you know what, we will not go that route. I mean, it's easy for us to be earning the way we want to be. I need cash at the end of the day. I will not go digital. I will do this. I will do that. I live on my own terms. I think last 8 years has taught us that and anything is possible when the world is digital. And I think the number of cabs that you see in every city today, it's either an Ola or an Uber, which proves that people who adapted and adopted grew significantly better for themselves, and they are earning a lot more money that what they could have typically earned by riding a car like a taxi, or a yellow taxi, or a orange taxi kind of a thing. So I mean, in my view, I think it's best if you join the sharing economy in the current scheme of things, because it's the best thing to do. And we spoke about how the careers evolved in the last few years. Interestingly, my grandfather was a grocery store owner. I'll just take a second. In the 1940s, and he was in Kerala, and his job was to source products as well. So he used to run across the country to source the rice, the wheat, the kind of spices that he need to sell. And he had deployed gig workers even then, what used to be called as coolie workers then in those ages. I think things didn't go well, and they had to shut the business and all of that. And that led my dad to pick up a career in an automotive company in Bombay. And he worked for that organization for 42 years, and until that company closed down. And this proves that I think the ability to take risks existed a lot more in the prior generation, or grandfather's generation, who seem to be a lot more risk savvy than our parents, who were a lot more risk averse. And I think that's because of the experiences that they've had, and I think also the factor of comfort zone. I have been, I think, in multiple jobs. I think not more than, I mean, I would say more than 4 jobs for sure in the last 17 years of my career. And every time I have moved on to take up better roles, it's on the basis of how am I learning? Is my learning improving, or is it newer experiences that I'm getting? And typically, if you see a someone with a career of about 20-25 years today would at least have had, um, um, if not less, I would say 5 to 6 jobs between the 25 years of careers. And eventually they end up becoming a freelancer because they now have the experience, expertise to be able to consult on that. Now that's a very different kind of freelancing of sorts, because then you consult on the skills that you already have. But if you were to be a freelancer today with very minimal experience to no experience, what does it look like is something that we'll just discuss in the next few slides as well. Our work also evolved over agriculture age to industrial age to information age to creativity age. I think we are in the creativity age today, where things are getting done from conceptualization of anything to getting things done. I think we take far lesser time than any of our predecessor generations. And I think technology has made that possible today. And I think, as I said, COVID has just pushed us to think more creatively, to solve the problems, the complex problems that we have in hand, that we need to deal with. Um, Collaborative economy. So gig economy or sharing economy or platform economy or crowd economy is all but same, but means slightly different in terms of the usage of digital interface. So I would say the Olas, Ubers, and the Swiggies of the world are more of platform economy. Sharing economy are the urban claps of the world. Crowd economy are people who come and pick up roles which are based on a nature of yeah, you get this done and you'll probably achieve. So for example, if I have an idea, or if I need to ideate or innovate, I will send out my business problem through a platform. 100 people pick up, and they give a solution to that, and the best guy or the girl wins the game and takes the money. And I think there are a lot of organizations that are investing a lot of money into this as well. And I think COVID will just prove that even more effective, because the problems that we will have, we cannot solve all by ourselves, and we don't need to hire someone to be solving that. We need only a bunch of people sitting somewhere looking at solving these problems by providing solutions to the problems that we have. And peer-to-peer economy as well. So you would have heard freelancers, gig workers, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. They all mean the same in terms of the mindset that we need to have, but may mean differently depending on the kind of jobs that you would do. So gig economy is anything where you have a fixed end date at the end of the day, right? The jobs will be extremely time bound. You come in for a specific scope of service, you come in for a specific time period, get the work done, move on, do something else for someone, or 9 to 2 you work for one organization, 3 to 7 you work for another organization. All of that possible, all of that is short term. And this was invented and this was designed to provide the flexibility to people. I'll give an example of actors. Actors are gig workers in many ways, right? Think about an Amitabh Bachchan or a Deepika Padukone, or Ayushmann Khurrana. They are all working on multiple projects at one go. They are not committed to one organization and working forever for them. Of course, they have contracts that they need to comply by, and there are dates, but their character on the screen is only for that particular movie, and you will see the same person playing a very different character elsewhere, and that's a skill called acting that they have. So gig economy is all about leveraging your skill to the fullest potential so that you earn a lot more out of the skill that you have. So who is a gig worker? So it could be anyone who could be working for a short-term, non-permanent basis. It could be freelancer, niche skill professional. It could be independent professional, temporary contract worker, independent contractor who could be working for an organization but contracted in a specific company. Interns are gig workers for me as well. Flexible internships. So you may not be doing the complete internship with me dedicated. You could do probably multiple internships at one go. People with disabilities and neurodiverse talent who never find job opportunities in the mainstream scheme of things could be a potential gig worker for me, because they would want to come and try, get used to the environment of work, and then probably decide if they want to work with us full time or not. Most often, they would prefer working on gig because that gives them the flexibility in terms of what they need to live their life effectively. So they are the gig workers in our view. And what is in it for you as a gig worker? You get the autonomy. You're empowered to take your own decisions. You're financially stable. There is a myth that gig workers are not financially stable. The answer is no. I mean, I think if you know the art of doing business really well, I think you will be earning a lot more compared to a full-time worker elsewhere. I mean, I really would give an example of someone earning a 10 lakh salary versus 10 lakh as a income through a freelancing role. The amount of taxes that you pay as an employee is around 30%, but as a gig worker, you may not be subject to as much of taxes because you're on a consulting model, and you are subject to only GST, which may be far lower, and so you can really get smarter ways to get yourself set up as a gig worker as well. And at the end of the day, you choose the times. You choose this, you set a schedule. You may want to say that I will work only for 4 months in a year, 8 months I'll vacation. Or you may say I will work 8 months in a year and 4 months I'll vacation. Or I will work only 4 hours in a day because I have a kid to take care of, or my family, and all of that. I mean, the flexibility element is the highest in the gig work, which I don't think today is being offered in any of the um, mainstream full-time jobs. And why is it all happening? Why is suddenly the gig economy shaping up in India? I think multiple reasons. One, Internet of Things that I said, which gave a huge boost to it. Two, I think the element of one to the 2008 crisis, 2008 crisis, which led to a large scale layoff in many sectors, which led to a lot of abundance of supply of talent. And we are somewhere closer to being in a similar situation even today. And when you have too many people available and not that many jobs, I think it's best to pick up the job that you get, which is very close to your heart in terms of the skills that you have. And I think it just makes you a lot more empowered and powerful to be doing something on your own in times like these, because you have not wasted a single day by being unemployed. You've started working on doing. I mean, you could start with blogging, you could be YouTubing, you could start with creating on articles on LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, sky is the limit when you start thinking that way. And I think amount of platforms and channels that we have to express ourselves and monetize the expressions, I would say, is a lot more higher today. Of course, it's a lot more competitive as well, but that's the beauty of having a level playing field. And the demand and supply is purely consumer driven. And a closest example that I can draw is surge pricing that Uber asks you to pay when they are high in demand, and you could probably do that as well if you're really good with something that you do. And the current COVID pandemic has really given us an opportunity to think about this in a much more refined or redefined manner. Because think about this. I mean, I don't think there was ever a scenario or a situation where we would not have embraced technology the way we have today. And I think the amount of work that is getting done digitally is enormous. Pick up any stats, the amount of time that we're spending on internet, the amount of time that we are spending um, on LinkedIn or Facebook has just gone up significantly. So which means I think we are in the right place. I think we need to do the right things now. And if you remember what Prime Minister Modi said a couple of days ago, which is really relevant for all of us, is how do we become Atmanirbhar or self-reliant? And I think that's a message that I would really reiterate here as well, is how can you take care of yourselves, while of course there will be regulations, legislations that will be rewritten to factor that in. How can you take care of yourself in the current scenario, while you also contribute on an economy that is just gonna flourish in the next few years? And I think that's where with the world of gig economy in India, at least, is moving towards. So how can the experience of change unlock the extraordinary? So I just will do a quick time check. Yeah, we are 15 minutes away. Ask yourself these questions. Are you being selective and focused on the opportunities that you have? Have you really asked yourself what are the options you have? What jobs are available? What types of openings or roles are you applying for, and should you be applying for? The focus on value is extremely important today than ever before, because there could be 10 people who could do the same kind of job. Are you doing it in a different way, or are you adding the value that is needed today? Are you able to solve the complex problem that we have today? Do you have the curiosity to be able to solve these for people? Are the questions that you need to really ask yourselves. Where else can you offer the service? If you had a notion that, oh, I am born and brought up in Mumbai, I can only look at opportunities in Mumbai. Well, digital has proved that you don't need to be anywhere to get the work done. Today, people, like I'm sitting in Bangalore and having the conversation with you through Zoom, which is possible, which was always possible even before, but today it's much more being widely used. So can you be digital and solve the problems for people by being on forums like these? What are the jobs that are available, and how are you equipped to handle all of that? And what else can you do if you're not equipped to handle that? And the importance of networking. Who should you connect with? How should you find the next potential job for yourself? And I think I'll talk about that a little bit in the next few slides. But the most important thing is we are going through a time where we got to reimagine. So reimagine the expectations, set the right expectations with yourself. Be creative in what you're doing. Reposition yourself as an individual who is more. Think of yourself as a commodity for a moment, or a product for a moment. And the reason why I'm saying that is with full respect to all of you who you are. But at the end of the day, if people need to see the value that you're bringing in, you can do that only when you really think about yourself as a product or a commodity, and show the differentiation that you can bring in. And I think that's extremely important as we grow into the next few quarters and years in the post-COVID world. Because the supply, as I said, supply will be abundant, the demand will be low. So it's going to be the competition and survival of the fittest. So you've got to reimagine yourself for all the opportunities that are available in the market. Reinvent yourself. You may not have the right skills, right approach to do things. You have probably thought about a career only as a full-time employee in an organization. You would have thought, okay, मैं accountant बनूंगा, or I would be a banker. But even in any, choose any path, any industry, any field, can you do everything with much more passion, much more assertiveness in being a gig worker? And I think the more you embrace this, it's going to just make your lives a lot more rewarding for yourselves. And once you do this, and I think next couple of years, you will probably look through all of this and would have tried multiple gigs, if not many. But reinforce. I mean, it has to sustain. You got to really continue thinking about it in the same way. Don't get back into the comfort zone of, oh yeah, I think now the worst is back. I'll start doing the same thing again. Probably have to look at how can you reinforce and strengthen and augment into the new reality of the post-COVID era, of the new ways of working, or the new normal of working, right? How do you set yourself as a successful freelancer or a gig professional? Have goals. Without a goal, you will never be able to achieve anything. Have simpler goals if that makes it easier for you. Give yourself a target of next 2 months, 3 months, and say that I want to do this by this date. Work towards it, right? Extremely important if you were to really think through that. I know in the current uncertain times, it's very difficult for you to do that, but do that. Only when you do that, it makes it easier for you to think through, oh, I need to do this, so how do I go about it? It's like, you know, goal setting is like, you want to travel, but if unless you buy a ticket, you will not know where to travel. So I would say do that for yourself. Personal branding is extremely important. I'll talk a little bit more in the next few slides on that. Start figuring out your buyer persona. So who's your customer? Who is going to hire you? Who are you going to sell your services to? Think through that. I think prospecting is extremely important. Whichever field you are in, whichever domain expertise you have, maybe a finance expert, HR expert, you got to know who you're going to sell your services to. Create and maintain a strong online presence, and network, and continue to network and grow the network, right? Importance of craftsmanship and being skilled. I spoke about this a little bit earlier as well. Like if there are two archers, two shooting at the same spot, the best guy is going to be the person who's shot in the bullseye. And unless you're not going to be trained and skilled enough to do that, I think it's always a guy who or the girl who hit in the bullseye going to take away the job. So hone your skills, extremely important. And skills is not education alone. It's got to be how good are you in whatever you do. So even if it is accounting, or even if it is communications, even if it is blogging, how good are you? Can you get more customers to buy your services? Craftsmanship is something that we always resonate with. We had it in the past. Pottery is a classic example. We gave away that because automation took that over. There were industries that made pottery possible much more with ease. But 3D printing is back. I think it's made pottery and similar things much more easier. How can you be crafty in times like these? How can you define your skills, which differentiates you compared to anyone else around you? Um, how 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 do you solve the same problem better than someone else using the skills and the crafts that you have? Is what I'm trying to leave you with in this. A bit on the skills of future, and I think this is no brainer. Actually speaking, we are living in a world with complex problems, with all the social challenges. We have the challenges around resources. Resources are available in abundance, but we don't know how to use them. We all have phenomenal cognitive abilities, so no AI, ML, or a robot is gonna take away our jobs. We all have leadership. Are we putting that to use? Are we listening to people at the end of the day? Are we listening to the right things, or are we listening to only things that we want to listen? All of that extremely relevant, important in the current context as well, and even in the future, because the world is going to continue being a lot more similar to what we are all going through right now. So talking about branding, and reason why I said branding becomes a lot more important for you as a gig worker than ever is think about brand for a moment. Britannia, if were to be a brand for biscuits, why is it that we would only buy Britannia and not Parley? Now, Parley, we would only resonate with Parley G. So I will buy the Parley G glucose biscuit, but I would not buy any other biscuit within the Parley um, list of biscuits, I would say. And that's because of the brand that has been associated. For a Mari, I go to Britannia. For a Parley G, or a glucose biscuit, I go to Parley G. Or the shoes, I would go to Adidas, and so on. And the list goes on, right? And I think at the end of the day, what that tells you is we buy things only based on the brand value that they have. And as I said earlier, it's extremely important for you to think about yourself as a brand or product. Unless and until you are able to be yourself, the authentic self, until you're able to um, show the uniqueness in you or the expertise that you have by creating the right amount of visibility for yourself, by being very effective in the skills of communication and build the right amount of credibility using all the channels like social media, media presence, etc., you will not have an effective personal brand. And in the world where you will be on exactly same method as you would imagine yourself in a platform like eventually on gig now as well, um, uh, like an Uber driver. At the end of the day, when you get done after the trip, he'll say, "Sab, mujhe 5 rating dena." And the reason why he would say 5 rating is for him to get rated. But what that does is when you also book a ride next time around, you'll see the rating of this individual. That's his brand. That tells me how good a guy he is. And imagine if that's how we will be selected for the next assignment that we're working on. It's extremely important for you to have a very strong personal brand. And how do you do that is by following these 7 elements of building an effective personal brand. Why do we establish credibility, and why is it so important? How to establish that? Going back again to Ola and Uber as an example, you may have your choices at the end of the day. You would go to an Ola or an Uber for various reasons, but I think you would do that because of the credibility that either of them would have had with you. How do you do that? Is by being trustworthy, competent, consistent, genuine, sincere, respectful, and principled at the end of the day. Would you go back to the same person who has canceled your rides for the last 5 times that you tried to book a ride with? No. Would you go and give the assignment of photography to someone who has spoiled your marriage photography? Probably never. And you'll continue to look for better people who have credible ways of doing the work, and you'll always do a ref check before employing someone, and that's what and that's why it's important as a gig worker or a freelancer for you to establish a very strong credibility for yourself. Embrace networking. A lot of people say that I'm very shy, I'm very introvert, I don't talk to people as much. Well, social distancing has proved that you can be isolated in home, but you can't live without talking to people. And I think by talking to people, you end up getting more opportunities for yourselves like these, right? And I think it's important, extremely important for you to be well networked, because your next potential opportunity of gig is gonna be only as effective your network is. And I think all my jobs in the last 5 to 7 years have been through a very strong network of people and references that I've had. And I think that is what I want you to all be really mindful about. Um, I'm not going to talk through this a bit in detail, but just want to leave you with thoughts around how do organizations hire even full-timers or gig workers these days, looking at a strong online presence. Are you doing the right things on public platforms? Are you sharing the right messaging, or are you subscribing to fake news, or are you doing the right things in terms of inspiring people, or are you spreading the negativity? because all of that determine are you going to be a cultural fit for me in the organization or not. And mind you, without you even realizing, everyone is looking at who you are and building perceptions about you based on your online presence. So extremely important for you to have that one. And when you have that, any kind of CV that you bring in is probably as much less important as your strong online presence is. So I would say focus on building a really strong positive online presence for yourselves, and all the more important if you were to think about yourself as a freelancer. So quickly, what is a freelancer? What is a solopreneurship? So a solopreneur is someone who could probably um, be running his own business with and just gonna get amplified further with the digitization or Web 2.0 services. So any freelancer, a thought leader, or a maker of a product, or an agent is a solopreneur. And can you become a solopreneur? It's pretty easy. And I think startupindia.gov.in, go there, you'll understand how easy is it for you to start a business for yourself. And if you ever to be a gig worker who wants to really make the best out of the money that you are making, I think being a solopreneur is the right thing to do. But what do you need to have to be a successful solopreneur? Again, as important as goal is, it is important for you to have the business vision as well. What is the business that you want to be in? What is the vision? What is the strategy for the business? What do you forecast? I know currently it's very difficult to predict, but how do you forecast your business for the next 6 to 18 months? You could choose that I want to be in the business only for 18 months. I want to see through the COVID period and be in most effective businessman in the current scenario because my focus is going to be on essentials. But have that. I think it's extremely important. Have a pitch, a deck, a portfolio for yourself. Have an elevator pitch. If you imagine you had a 30-minute or 30-second conversation with someone and you had to impress this person for the work that you do, can you do that? And having an effective elevator pitch is extremely important. How can you build a strong online presence? We just spoke about that. How can you get your 5-star rating for the work that you did? If you have these, I think you will be a lot better, much effective, a strong and a successful gig worker or a solopreneur or a freelancer. A bit about EY's Gig Now program that we just spoke through. All you need to do, all the aspirants on the call today, register on gignow.com. Now, does registering on gignow.com give you a job or guarantee you a job? No. What it does is gives you a chance to be considered when there is a role or an opening at any point of time. This is like you creating a Naukri profile or a LinkedIn profile. What GigNow does is based on the skills and the CV that you have put in, it will start triggering emails to you to say, there are these opportunities that are available. By registering at that point of time in the GigNow platform, you stand a chance to be considered for roles that are available. So I would say if you're thirsty, don't dig a well then. Probably dig a well now because you know at some point of time you will be thirsty and you would need some water. So register on gignow.com, and I think there would be a lot of opportunities on gig that will be available in the next 6 to 12 months. By being there on the platform, you will stand a chance to be considered for a role that will be open. I'm going to skip in the interest of time these elements, but just focus on this slightly as to what do you get by being on gig now. It's my entire team that helps me on this journey is on gig now, are gig workers, and they feel no different by being on gig. They are getting the same experience, a lot better experience, the same amount of compensation. They have the independence, they have the flexibility. They work on all the social security. I mean, they get all the social security programs and benefits that we get. And at the end of the day, have as rewarding a career as a gig worker, than I would have as a full timer as well. So I would say, do not think of this as any less as an opportunity when it compares to evaluating a full time opportunity role. Doing multiple stints of short-term gigs for the next 3 to 5 years will give you experience that you would gather, which will be much richer and diverse. And maybe 5 years down the line, you may want to think that, okay, now I have done 10 roles in gigs. I understand which is my passion, what is my liking. I would now want to be a full-time employee. But do not wait under the assumption that market will open up and you will find a job one day which is a full-time job. Yes, I'm not saying that the full-time jobs will not be there. They will be there. We will be hiring people on full-time as well, but it will be a lot more selective based on whether it is going to give me the right value for the money of investment that I'm making. So embrace this change, folks. It's extremely important for you to do that, and I think you will reap huge dividends at the end of the day when you move along, growing in your career in the future. Just a bit about how to apply to Gig Now. Just go to gignow.com. Very simple, gignow.com. It's extremely simple to create a profile for yourself. And as I said, if there is a role that will be available, you can find roles that are available even now using Find Gigs. And if you think there are roles that you think you will fit in, please feel free to apply and we will definitely come back to you on the same. That's pretty much that I had. And I think as much as it is an uncertain time, as much as it is a challenging time, I want to leave you with a thought of being an eternal optimist in times like these. Don't think that, oh, this is a big problem. This is an opportunity. Every crisis in the last 100 years or even beyond has presented enormous amount of opportunities to us, and we human beings have the potential to overcome all of that. And I want you all to think about this as an opportunity and work towards making it bigger for yourself. With that, I'll just pause and be open to take any questions that you may have.
Requesting all the participants to put the questions in the Q&A box, or you can even raise your hands.
I think there are a few questions that have come in. Let me just okay. So the first question is, will virtual CFO, part-time CFO concept more in demand in today's scenario post-COVID? Absolutely. And the reason for that is we have never imagined the kind of resourcefulness of an individual the way we are currently imagining ourselves as, right? Um, though not a direct example, but an example that I would want to leave you all and you will resonate with this really well is, could you think of a day, a 24-hour day, where you could be sitting and doing your work at the same time being with your family, at the same time helping them with their daily chores, helping them with all that they need in terms of buying groceries and all of that, and yet probably find time to have good 6 to 8 hours of sleep, find to be socially mingling with friends on all digital platforms. COVID has taught us one thing, that the 24 hours are a lot to be able to do um, in the current scenario. And I think we just spent a lot of time focusing on the wants and not so much the needs, right? Drawing the parallel to the current world of reality in the corporate side, I think there was never a challenge that was posed to anyone in the past, whether a part-time CFO or a virtual CFO would work or not. Well, in today's world, everyone is virtual CFO. No one is going to work. Everyone is sitting at home and getting the work done. A CEO is a virtual CEO. A CHRO is a virtual CHRO. So I think it's about a lot of organizations coming together and asking these questions to themselves, and I think they will continue to do that. And you will see a lot more roles moving into this direction in the near future. How will you handle issues of confidentiality, especially when you have working with competitors? Well, of course, there will be newer laws and guidelines that we will have to come with. A lot of organizations will, like in EY, we would definitely ensure that if the gig worker is working with us, they would not be working with other competitors that we are working in the industry with. So there will be exclusivity agreements put in place as well, depending on the kind of jobs that they do. And I think a lot of change will happen in that space. Working on a gig for a corporate will be very different than working as a freelancer. will come with certain guidelines and principles to be followed. Hope that answers the question, Mr. Nair. Can you suggest optimal ways to network with people during this pandemic? It feels difficult to network compared to normal times. I think the world of digital platforms is open. All you need to do is have the right channels in place. Like I'll say this, in the last 3 months, I would have added close to 5,000 people in my network of LinkedIn. Few I needed them to be part of my network. Few I felt it would be great for me to be part of their network. And I think the amount of knowledge sharing that we have done in the last 3 months is phenomenal. And I think you need to find portals, platforms like those to be able to network well. One tip on networking I would say is network is not always about taking. Start networking with giving as a mindset. What are you there to offer? How can you be helping them in the current scenario? Be gentle, be human. Ask them about how they are doing, if they are all well, they're safe, etc. And then be there to offer help. That goes a long way versus writing to someone and asking them, hey, you know what, I'm looking for this opportunity. And I think that's the wrong footing I would want all of you to avoid. So if you can just take that in mind. Naisha, I will answer your question once I'm done with these. Okay, what is the scope of machine learning? And if possible, brief about how machine learning is used at EY. Um, I would take this offline if that is okay, because this is a very vast topic. It will be injustice for me to just give a sentence answer to this, but it's happening in EY at a much larger scale, like in any other organization. So I'll leave it at that. Is there a difference between freelancing and gigs contract workers? These are different names, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I could call you a freelance, I could call you a gig worker, I could call you a contract worker. At the end of the day, I value you for who you are and the value that you bring in based on your skills. So that's what I would say. I mean, at the end of the day, it's short-term need getting fulfilled through direct contracting with you. When work from home is encouraged, will not affect the security such as data leaks? Yes, of course it will. Cybersecurity has been a concern in the last 60 days more than ever, and will continue to be an area of focus for a lot of organizations to look at ways to ensure data privacy is maintained. There will be a lot more innovation, safeguarding tools, techniques that will come in, but it will not really be something that will prohibit us from working from home, because I think the benefits of working from home is far more higher than all of else put together, because I think that's where the world will move towards. It's better for a full-time company secretary to take. I don't sure that I understand that question, so if you may want to rephrase that. Are there short-term internships for students on a work from home model? Absolutely. I think that's happening even today. Like a lot of organizations have, including EY, are honoring internships on a virtual mode, because that's the only way that can happen today as we speak. There's no way that I'm able to have you come to my workplace, because there's no one there in the workplace. What about impermanence factor attached to a gig worker? I mean, Rajni, I would say impermanence is for everybody. Who thought about everything that we are currently thinking about on March 15th? No one, right? I would have gone thinking that I would be getting my salaries, bonuses, everything. I live a luxurious life until COVID happened. The last 60 days has proven that nothing is permanent. And we got to be all humble and be accepting to the fact that the impermanence is here to stay. And how do we live and create the permanence model within, internalize and take charge of ourselves as individuals, is the art that we are all here discussing today. How insurance sustainability in that case? Well, you're only as good as you are in that assignment, and this assignment will lead you into newer assignments, and newer assignments. and you'll continue to grow a lot more at the end of the day in by being a freelancer gig worker. And then it doesn't matter about sustainability because you're self-sustained in that way. If that helps. I shared my views on waste management earlier, and I think that will hold good. And I think there will be a lot of emphasis on the waste management aspect of the world because there will be newer industries being set up. There will be newer organizations that will grow in this field. The new categorization of waste will uh, and compliances and governance around that will also come into place. So a lot of opportunities will come in that space. Um, EY will continue to hire like every other organization, but may not look the same way how it was pre-COVID. The kind of people we hire, the number of people we hire, will look very different, and that's because of the nature of the business that we are in. We also depend heavily on the clients that give us work. The clients also are going through a lot of challenges, and I think that will have an impact on how things work even for us as an organization. How can gigs secure themselves for their future? By doing more gigs. Do gig after gig. Do I would say think yourself as an actor. I mean, how can an actor continue to be living? I mean, I my idol in for all of these situations is Amitabh Bachchan. Uh, how he was powerful in 1970s, challenged in 80s, troubled in 90s, 2002, 2020 is all him. And I think we got to learn a lot from him in terms of how even after bankruptcy in 96, he stood back and won the entire game. And I think that's what I would say in the current scheme. How do the future of working environment under banking operations, as banking is more about trust and security of data and valuables? So this is going to be there's going to be a lot of creativity, innovation coming in here. Robotics will play a huge role in this, and I think HDFC, if you were to remember, had started journey towards this and will continue to grow a lot. I think the focus will be as much as going digital, and discourage people from coming to banks as much as possible, because that's what people have learned in the last 60 days. And I think a lot of innovation and digitization will happen, which will make it practically irrelevant for people to go to a bank for banking. Um, may not happen immediately and tomorrow, but will eventually go in that direction. It's better for a full-time company secretary to take a certificate practice. Absolutely, I would say yes. That's what I think you should do. Yes, agree completely. You should be a practicing chartered accountant, company secretary versus sticking to a full-time job. And mind you, company secretaries, financial analysts, chartered accountants have their glory days coming in because of the amount of work that will happen through mergers and acquisitions, the financial modeling that needs to happen, the amount of predictability that we need to build in the next few years, and sorry, including chartered financial analysts as well, will be in demand, and don't necessarily associate demand with high pay, I would say, but you will be in demand for the next several years because the problems that we have are complex in nature, and we need smart people like you to be able to solve them for us. Will I not be exposed to more cyclical behavior of economy and the security net? Well, if you're a gig worker, you're not, right? You're securing yourself through any cycles. It may impact you for a month and a half, 2 months, but at the end of the day, you still have a book of business that you will go back and earn money from. Versus if you're an employee, you're always at a risk of losing your job. Current scenario, Y2K, probably worse than that. Only time will tell how much in many ways, because Y2K was still very um, economic crash than anything else. This is economic plus health. We will lose people to this crisis as well, which is slightly disturbing, if I were to say. Thank you, Sanjeev. 3 tips, I would say, as I said, the 3 R's: reimagine, reinvent, reinforce. is what I would say for being a sustainable, successful freelancer. Entrepreneurship in emerging economies has many challenges, and biggest of them is the voids, how to overcome them. All of this will change, Chirag. A lot of it is based on the prior assumptions pre-COVID world. You will see a lot more acceptance to a lot of this in the new world post-COVID, because people really will not have many choices to be able to use the same old laws and the liquidity practices that we had in the past. And I think some of the recent government announcements are great positive steps towards encouraging more liquidity, enabling laws for situations like this. Future of fintech specialization, a lot more. I already spoke about that in the banking space, and digital payments, wallets will grow. Anything that pro, anything that allows you to be touch free is going to be the growth area. Um, Absolutely. Any kind of upskilling, panchanan, is going to be valuable, rewarding, if not now, in the future for sure. So do not stop yourself from upskilling, doing more things. So I think that brings the end of questions for today. I
The
think
questions are
that
over, but let's check if the participants have raised their hand.
sure,
No,
sure,
none of
sure,
them
sure.
have raised their hands. There are no questions there either.
Yeah. So blockchain
Ma'am, are you there?
technology. I think there are a couple of questions that have come in. Blockchain will grow significantly because of the value that it brings in. And I think the touch-free element will just amplify that adoption across the industries, organizations, governments as well. I think I would leave it at that, but the potential is huge. Diversify yourself, Ankita. I would say look at all potential options where you're good at, and look at doing multiple gigs, if not one, and establish yourself as a successful gig worker. Yes, someone had any question? Happy to answer.
Any more questions? You can even raise your hands and ask the question.
I think
We have one question from Dhruv.
yeah,
So I am allowing him to speak.
sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, Dhruv, you can speak. Yeah, Dhruv, you can speak. Dhruv Bhatnagar, can you hear me?
Dhruv, you can speak. I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Hello.
I think if that's all,
That's all questions.
thank you
Yeah, but yeah, Priti ma'am.
very much for the opportunity. Hope it was helpful.
Yeah, Priti ma'am, you can speak.
Yeah. Agnilo, if you could unmute everyone for a second, I would like to have a round of applause for Gopal. It was so fantastic. Can you unmute all? You know?
Unmuting all is individually you have to do here, so it's very difficult.
But I can visualize that.
Okay.
No, Gopal, if I had to summarize this, I think I would require another 2 hours. I think you were so good. Every bit was like, every sentence. I'm sure Business Standard has recorded this and we could replay it and we could listen to it. And I have always been a believer of Mahatma Gandhi's saying that, nature has enough for people's need, not for the greed.
Yeah.
So perhaps, if we could, like it has, this has proved all along. We were listening to what Mahatma Gandhi said, we read it, but this time has actually said that, no, how true he was,
Yeah.
When he made that statement. And when you were talking of multiple gigs, I want to share another example, of a very close friend of mine who's in the US. And of course, she's not one of those very educated ones, and maybe an MBA graduate may not be able to relate with her. But her entire career for the last 15 years, she's lived in the US, and she's been moving from, say, an Avon bottling plant of nail paints to a sandwich factory, and applying butter to those the bread, and then moving to a pharma company where she's
Absolutely.
packing things. So 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours she works,
Yeah.
and per hour she's paid something like $30, $40. End of the day, she's on a $200 per day, which is a very good money for her.
Yeah.
Drives her own vehicle,
Yeah.
has got a beautiful apartment, got a green card, and living there, and doesn't want to come back to India. So the kind of money that she's been making, an example of multiple gigs as you're talking, and very comfortable doing that. And I think the students have got very good insights in terms of, that yes, tech platforms are the ones which are going to be good, and they need to keep themselves open and skilled for those tech platforms to connect with the consumers in whichever way they want to. And the journey from a freelancer to an entrepreneur, so if people want to scale up their operations,
Right.
and get on to, from starting from a freelancing, which could be just a simple craftsmanship, and
Right.
from a craftsmanship you want to become an entrepreneur, and the journey, and perhaps in between you may get on to those multiple gigs which tell you what you are an expert at.
Right.
And that can be scaled up to an entrepreneur, and the entire operations can be commercialized over a period of time. So I think
Sure.
there was so much in your talk, and I just, every bit of it was something that I want to keep with me, internalize
Sure.
it completely. And one more thing, Gopal, we would want to connect with EY,
Sure.
not just this webinar, but
Sure.
also your gig, plus the other opportunities, and in what way can EY and IBS come together.
Sure.
Our students during the this internship, when they were at home, they have all been encouraged to take up multiple certifications.
Yeah.
As they were working from home, they could
Great
do.
thing. Great
Each
thing.
one
Yeah.
of them has gone to Udemy, and they've gone to Coursera, and they've gone and picked up multiple
Wonderful.
certifications
Wonderful.
during this time, and have skilled themselves. And now we will be working on their mindsets when they come back, so
Right.
so that they work on a good blend of the skills and the mindset, which
Right.
tells them that there is a lot of opportunity for them, and not just that no, with the pandemic the world is coming to an end. It is not. And
Sure.
as we mentioned, that the kind of optimism that we all need to
Yeah.
keep,
Yeah.
along with that optimism, I think their own willingness to accept the opportunities that
Yep.
come their way. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, and over to
Sure.
Dr. Geeta. Yeah. Rita?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 Okay. I'll just. We might want to take a question from Professor Hemant Purandare if he's around. Hemant, sir, yesterday you slipped away, but today I think we would want a question from you. Are you there, Hemant, sir? Maybe he'll come back. He'll come back. Any more questions? Otherwise, can we have a quick vote of thanks? Is what I wanted to ask. All right. I think it was wonderful. And I think more than the youngsters, I think even we, on the other side, I don't want to announce my age, but a lot of us also thought we would probably want to register with Gig Now and check out what opportunities we have for ourselves. Thank you so much for your time and
You're welcome. You're welcome.
for such a humble presentation that you made. Preeti ma'am, I think you get better by the day, and there are so many things that I wish to emulate and copy, I think, now. So this interaction also gives insights on how one conducts oneself on an online platform, and there's a lot to learn from both of you. Thank you all the participants for having been with us today, and I think this definitely has given us a new direction in which we should be moving forward. A quick word of thank you to Professor Hemant Purandare although he doesn't like it, I know. I would still like to say thank you to him for always being there behind and telling us what to do and what not to do in a lot of cases. Thank you, Hemant sir. Thank you to Ruhi Mishra, who went all out and got you from somewhere out there for us. Thank you, Ruhi. A big thank you to Rajesh Deshmukh, because he's the person who's been critical behind connecting us to Mr. Agnello Dias and making this entire thing happen. Mr. Agnello, I really, really troubled you quite a few times when you were.
It's a privilege to serve you, ma'am.
Yes, you were very.
And it was such a wonderful session by Mr. Gopal Iyer that literally it was not even a single minute wasted. So it is really excellent learning for us. In fact, now I have to start looking for the gig opportunity.
And a big thank you to Business Standard and all the faculty members who connected with the students to bring all the students on board. Thank you to IBS HO, Dr. R.R. Reddy, Mr. T.V.V.G. Satyanarayana, and all in Team IBS for making sure that they were all here. I think a lot of campus heads have also been part of this webinar. Thank you, all of you, and we look forward to many more sessions. Over to Mr. Agnello.
So that's all. I don't have to add much. I just wanted to say thank you to Gopal sir. It was a wonderful session. Kriti ma'am, Rita ma'am, and also Hemant sir. Okay. Thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so
Stay
much.
home,
Thank you for the
stay safe.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay home, stay safe. Yeah.